Back in Sudan, now over 100 people have died after fighting between two different armed groups. One is described as state armed forces, the army. The other is described as a paramilitary group calling itself the Rapid Support Forces. The fighting's led to clashes in different parts of Sudan at a time when the military is supposed to be handing over power to a civilian government. Mekki Elmograbi is a press writer on African affairs, a former diplomat in Washington. Mekki, good afternoon to you. What started this? Why do we suddenly have these two groups fighting in Sudan now?
Actually, it started as a political crisis, but when the political faction split into two, and already, unfortunately, there is no one army. There was an army in Sudan, the National Army, and there was special forces, they call it the Rapid Support Forces. It was just like a paramilitary, but it has its own bases, its own military camps in Khartoum. So the ambitions of the leader of these forces and the competition with the other politicians that made that there is no agreement on to continue in the agreement in the negotiation, because to integrate this paramilitary into the national army, he suggested that he needs 10 years to be independent, and after that he will start the process of the process should be started within time frame of 10 years. But the national army said that this is long time, and that means you just want to be independent from the national army for a longer time, and the integration of the rapid support forces should happen within time of 2 years only, and this is the international standards. But the disputes continued, and the politicians took sides. Some of them took side of the military, and some of them took side of the rapid support forces, and even the countries that mediating and intervening in the Sudanese issues, some of them sided with the politicians that they sided with the rapid support forces, and some of them sided with the politicians who are siding with the national army. So I'm sorry to give you this contradiction in a very short time, but this is what's happening in the reality. And now there was an anger within the army, the national army, and even if you ask me if there is any way to avoid that, I don't think that there was any way to avoid that. The army command or the army leader started to attack the strongholds of the rapid support forces. Now they took the army, the national army, because there is no balance of power between the national army and the rapid support forces. They took over the 6 military bases that belongs to rapid support force in the capital Khartoum. But unfortunately, their soldiers are scattered, and they are gathering in some areas in Khartoum, turning them into a new strongholds.
There's a lot going on, and I mean, a lot of the sort of Western media has described it as the paramilitary group wants to be part of the armed forces, and yet they're fighting with the armed forces they say they want to be a part of. Is it about that? Is it about a fight for control? Is it a fight for resources? Is it a fight for money or salaries,
unfortunately, Western media and it is not just for media. The Western intervention in Sudan is very heavy. And unfortunately, one of our bad things in Africa that we became battleground for Western powers. When they fight in Ukraine, the fight will happen in Africa. When they fight in Afghanistan, the fight will happen in Africa. So Africa became an extension for any battlefield in the world between the big power. This was one of the problems. There are some claims that the rapid support forces have good relation with Russia, and they have Wagner within their troops, and the national army is closer to Egypt, and he is against that. It is against that. But here is the point. I think the decision to have one army, that decision was or should be done actually. no one now in the public opinion supporting the army step that there should be one army and the other groups should be integrated. And what they said that they need 10 years, that's too long. But still, part of the problem is that decisions should be taken by Sudanese themselves, and the transitional period took long time, and the promised election delayed and delayed and delayed. And if things in the right delayed, that means denied.
Is there support from the rest of the population from one group or another? I'm talking about civilians. I mean, does this divide the country, or is it just among the soldiers, the people in uniform who are fighting?
If I give you a question correctly, I don't think the issue will turn to a civil war in Sudan. Because it is a political dispute on the power, number one. Number two, yes, it's true, the Rapid Support Forces originated from Darfur and from specific tribes from Darfur, and they are fighters. But now the tribal chiefs of the same tribe that has very big contribution in the Rapid Support Forces, they came out with statements, and they criticized the Rapid Support Forces, and they sided with the army. That gives me sense that the political crisis will continue, the insecurity within the capital will continue, but it is not something that possible to turn to the same situation in Libya or Yemen or others. Now I'm talking to you in an area that is between the two centers of the clashes. There is a center of clash south to my place, 3 kilometers, and the other is north to my place, 2 kilometers and half, something like that. And I hear from here and there. Luckily, I can say that the time distance between hearing, they are still continuous, but sometimes it's stopped for 2 hours, 3 hours, and then resume again. So the distance between the clashes now is getting longer. Also, the civilians, definitely the civilians in the area, in the two areas, they are facing big problems. And some of them, they became human shields by the Rapid Support Forces. They are occupying a school where there is around 100 students with their teachers. It's surrounded by the Rapid Support Forces also. Before, I think, yesterday there was a building of media correspondents and media private TVs companies and private studios, and they cannot get out, but they made some calls through the social media, and then the army evacuated them from the building. So that still we are facing some difficulties in the two areas of the clashes. But if I'm talking about people that they are not in the area of the clashes, nothing here at all. People, they go outside, really, they just hear the heavy sounds of the bombing, and they are afraid, definitely. They are scared from that. But,
sure.
because we used to hear that within several periods in Sudan.
Okay.
And till now, there is no problem with food supplies, but it will happen, definitely. I expect that the fight will continue for more 2 weeks.
Sure.
I don't think it will be settled within this week.
All right.
Definitely will take 2 weeks.
Mr. Elmograbi, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed for your time. At least 2 weeks is his prediction. Mekki Elmograbi is a press writer on African affairs and a former diplomat.